Eliza Monroe stood alone in the marble foyer of a Manhattan law office, clutching the thin envelope with her name handwritten in looping cursive. She hadn't seen her grandmother in over 20 years, barely remembered her honestly. But somehow, here she was, named sole heir to a crumbling brownstone on the Upper East Side, one of the few remaining relics untouched by developers and gentrification. She should have sold it. But Eliza needed a place to disappear. 6 months ago, she was a rising star in the art world, a brilliant young curator at the Ashland Museum. That all ended when a priceless sculpture vanished on her watch. The press called her negligent, colleagues whispered worse, and her fiancé, who worked security at the same museum, walked out without a word. Overnight, her life became a public scandal. So, when the house came into her hands, Eliza saw it as a lifeline. Way out. A new beginning. She moved in within the week, determined to restore the property and herself. But the house, it didn't feel like a home. Its walls creaked even when there was no wind. The old grandfather clock ticked in sync with her heartbeat. And every night the same dream came. A woman standing before a mirror, sobbing silently while blood dripped from her hands. Eliza hadn't even noticed the attic door until her 3rd week. It was tucked behind an armoire, partially blocked by dust-covered boxes. She pulled them aside one stormy evening, curiosity overpowering the voice in her head that said leave it alone. The attic stairs groaned beneath her weight. Cold air rushed past her like breath escaping. The room was dark, stale, and filled with old furniture, shattered picture frames, and rotting trunks. And in the far corner, partially covered with a stained white sheet, stood an ornate mirror over 6 feet tall. Something about it pulled her in. Its frame was gilded with twisted vines and roses, tarnished by time but still hauntingly beautiful. Carved along the top were the words, Veritas videbitur. Truth shall be seen. She tugged the sheet down. The glass was cloudy, as though resisting her reflection. But then, her image came into focus. Except, it didn't feel like her. The woman in the mirror wore her face, but her expression was off, blank, almost observing. Her eyes didn't follow Eliza's movements. They stared past her, watching, waiting. Eliza blinked. The reflection mirrored her perfectly again. Maybe it was the lighting, or the stress. But that night the whispering began. It was faint at first, barely audible murmurs just before sleep. Words she couldn't make out. She'd jolt awake and sit upright in the darkness, heart racing, eyes on the attic door. She convinced herself it was just old pipes, or dreams, or both. But the reflection kept acting strange. Sometimes it seemed to smile just a second too late. Sometimes her mirrored hand moved after she'd already dropped hers. Once she looked away, and when she glanced back, her reflection was still staring dead ahead, eyes locked onto her own. By the 2nd week, Eliza had stopped going up there altogether. But the mirror wasn't done with her. She began finding things. Torn newspaper articles shoved under the floorboards near the attic. Yellowed photos tucked into forgotten drawers. One article caught her breath. Lillian Voss declared insane after sister's murder. The black and white photo showed a woman in a long dress being led from the house. This house, by 2 officers. Her face was Eliza's. She wasn't just similar. She was identical. Same sharp cheekbones. Same stormy gray eyes. Same defiant chin. And the date. April 1902. No, Eliza whispered to herself. It's just coincidence. But deep down she felt the fracture. A tiny crack running through her carefully rebuilt sense of self. The mirror was the only thing that felt honest now. That night, she climbed back up into the attic, flashlight in hand. Dust swirled like spirits around her. The mirror stood tall and silent, its glass now crystal clear. Eliza stared at it. "Who are you?" she whispered. The reflection smiled. And this time she didn't. Eliza didn't sleep that night. Even after she slammed the attic door and locked it shut, she felt the weight of the mirror pressing down on her chest like a secret too heavy to carry. She stayed curled up on the couch, every light in the house turned on. her eyes fixed on the ceiling as if it might crack open and whisper back. The reflection had smiled when she hadn't. She wasn't losing her mind. At least that's what she told herself. But the facts were blurring. The articles, the photos, the name. Lillian Voss. How could a woman from 1902 look exactly like her? By morning, Eliza was back at her laptop, fingers trembling as she typed Lillian Voss into the city archives. Most results were locked behind paywalls or marked, not digitized. But after some digging, she found one hit. A scanned copy of a psychiatric journal, faded and poorly typed. Patient, Lillian Voss. Aged 29. Committed. April 23, 1902. Notes. Visual hallucinations. Claims of hearing voices. Obsession with antique mirror. Displays dissociative identity symptoms. History of violence toward sibling. The sibling's name wasn't listed. But there was one more line, scribbled in faded ink at the bottom of the page. She insists the reflection is alive. That it watches her. That it knows her name. Eliza backed away from the screen. Her heart thudded in her chest like a drumbeat counting down. This couldn't be real. Maybe she was spiraling. Maybe the house's history was warping her thoughts. Maybe. Knock knock knock. He jumped. The sound came from the attic. 3 sharp knocks, then silence. Eliza stood frozen. The door was locked. She'd locked it herself. Still, she picked up a fireplace poker, tiptoed up the stairs, and approached the attic door with a caution she'd never known before. It was slightly ajar. She hadn't left it like that. "Hello," she whispered, heart pounding. No answer. She pushed it open and stepped inside. The air was freezing, though it was mid-July. The mirror stood where she'd left it, but something was different. Its surface rippled faintly, like water disturbed by a breath. Her reflection stared back, calm. Then blinked, out of sync. Eliza gasped and stepped back. This wasn't normal. This wasn't psychological stress or imagination. This was happening, and she needed help. That afternoon, she tracked down a name that had come up in her research. A man named Dr. Emmett Renner, now in his 90s, long retired but once a promising psychiatrist in the 1960s. He had studied the Voss case, Eliza read. Interviewed surviving staff. Even visited the house before it was sealed off for years. He lived upstate in a care facility. She called ahead and lied. Said she was writing a thesis on historic psychiatric cases. They let her in. Dr. Renner was frail, pale, and curled into a chair like a leaf folded by age. But when he saw Eliza, his eyes widened in absolute terror. "You shouldn't be here," he said hoarsely. Dr. Renner, I just have a few questions about Lillian Voss." She said you'd come back," he interrupted, his voice trembling. "She said the mirror let you out once. That if you ever returned, you'd finish what she started." "What?" Eliza whispered, stunned. "She wasn't insane," the old man muttered. No. That mirror was older than the house. Older than anything in it. Lillian said it didn't reflect, it recorded. That it remembered everyone who ever stood in front of it. And sometimes it kept them. Eliza felt sick. "She claimed her sister was trying to take her place," Dr. Renner continued. "That her reflection started behaving on its own. One day she blacked out. When she woke up there was blood. Her sister was dead. But Lillian swore it wasn't her. It was the version from the mirror." He looked up, his eyes suddenly sharp. "You have her face. But you're not her. Not completely. Are you?" Eliza shook her head. "I don't know what I am anymore." That night, back at the house, she stood in front of the mirror again. The attic was colder than ever. The mirror's glass no longer looked like glass. It shimmered softly, like a sheet of mist hanging in place. "Are you Lillian?" she asked. The reflection didn't move. Then it did. Slowly, deliberately, the woman in the mirror smiled. Her lips moved. Eliza couldn't hear the words, but she understood them. "Meow." The words echoed in her mind even though the mirror hadn't spoken aloud. Me out. Eliza stumbled backward. Her breathing came in short, ragged gasps. The reflection wasn't just mimicking anymore, it was communicating. And it wanted something. The attic light flickered. Shadows crept up the walls. She turned and bolted down the stairs, slamming the attic door shut behind her. This time, she dragged a heavy dresser in front of it. She didn't sleep. She didn't move. She sat on the floor of her living room, hugging her knees until morning. At some point she must have blacked out, because when her eyes fluttered open, it was daylight and the phone was ringing. It was a blocked number. She hesitated, then picked up. Eliza Monroe. A calm female voice asked. Yes. My name is Dr. Marin Holt. I'm a historian with the Historical Society of New York. You accessed some of our files on the Voss family last week. I was hoping we could speak. Eliza agreed cautiously. They met at a cafe across from the old public library. Dr. Holt was younger than Eliza expected, in her mid-30s with sharp features and an analytical air. She sipped her coffee while flipping through a file folder. Your resemblance to Lillian Voss is unsettling, Dr. Holt admitted. I assume you've seen the photos. I've seen more than photos, Eliza replied quietly. She's in the mirror. I know how that sounds, but I believe you, Dr. Holt interrupted. You're not the first to say that. Eliza leaned forward. What do you mean? Dr. Holt pulled out a brittle page from an old journal. There are records, lost ones. Lillian's sister, Margaret, kept a diary. In her final entry she wrote, Lillian no longer looks like Lillian. Something watches from the mirror. I think she's being replaced. Days later, Margaret was found dead. She slid another document forward. And this. A police report from 1947. A family moved into the house after it was restored post-war. The daughter went missing. All the mirrors were shattered when the police arrived, except one, the one in the attic. Her mother swore she saw her child inside it. Eliza went cold. Why does the mirror want me? Because it remembers, Dr. Holt said simply. It reflects not just your image but your essence. If Lillian made a pact to escape, if she forced her reflection to stay while she walked free, it could be trying to balance that. You think I'm Lillian's reflection? Eliza asked, voice trembling. I think you might be both. That night, Eliza returned home, her head spinning with questions. She couldn't eat, couldn't think. The boundaries between reality and illusion were crumbling. She had to end it. She crept up to the attic with a hammer in one hand and gasoline in the other. She was going to destroy the mirror, break the glass, burn the frame, reduce it to ash. But when she reached the attic, it was already open. The mirror glowed faintly, as if lit from within. And the reflection, it was gone. She stared into the glass. Nothing looked back. Just the room behind her. Me. And a whisper. Eliza. A turn. No one. Eliza. Came from inside the mirror. She faced it again, and there she was. Not the usual reflection, but Lillian. Dressed in 1900s lace. Her eyes wild, furious, trapped. You took everything from me, the woman hissed, her voice echoing through the glass. My life. My face. My freedom. I didn't, Eliza whispered. You're just the shell, Lillian snarled. The shadow of what I was. And now, it's your turn. Suddenly, Eliza's feet wouldn't move. Her limbs felt heavy, stiff. The air thickened like syrup. The mirror's surface began to pull, the glass rippling outward, reaching for her like water. No! Eliza screamed, swinging the hammer. She struck the mirror once, twice, 3 times. Cracks spidered across the glass, but it didn't break. Instead, Lillian's expression twisted in rage, and the attic around Eliza seemed to shake. She poured gasoline across the floor and struck a match. The flames caught quickly, licking at the walls and racing up the wood. The mirror pulsed, glowing brighter as smoke filled the room. Lillian pressed her hands against the inside of the glass, her mouth open in a silent scream. Eliza turned and fled, choking on smoke, stumbling down the stairs. She crashed through the front door just as the attic exploded in a burst of fire and glass. She watched from the sidewalk, coughing as the fire consumed the house. The mirror was gone. Weeks passed. Eliza stayed in a hotel out of town, her nerves raw but steadying. No more dreams. No more whispers. The woman in the mirror had vanished into ash. Or so she thought. One morning, she checked into a new apartment, a modern place with floor-to-ceiling windows and minimalist decor. The real estate agent smiled as she handed over the keys. "There's a lovely antique mirror the last tenant left behind. In the bedroom. Adds a touch of elegance." Eliza froze. She walked slowly through the unit, heart pounding. In the bedroom stood a tall, familiar mirror. The frame, roses and vines. The carving, Veritas Videbitur. She stepped toward it. Her reflection looked back. But for just 1 second, it blinked out of sync.